Bem-vindas, bem-vindos. Muito obrigado. Prazer estar aqui com vocês.
Okay. So, hello everyone, and welcome to this 360 experience of people around us for this open class today with Vincent Moon. Let me just start to thank Diogo and José Alberto for the invitation to host this session. Thanks to all of you for coming also to this open class. And especially thank you, Vincent, for being here with us in Porto for what I am sure will be a very memorable and joyful session. So, I'm just going to start to introduce a little bit Vincent. So, his real name is Mathieu Saura, also known as Vincent Moon. And he's a filmmaker, photographer, and sound artist, born in Paris, but a true citizen of the world. And he started his career as a photographer and an experimental filmmaker, working with different expressive techniques. And back in 2006, he began collaborating with Christophe Brick in the internet platform La Blogothèque, where they developed the well-known Takeaway Shows, a project that tried to film music in a different way, far from the cliches of the music industry, improvising spontaneous video sessions with well-known and unknown indie musicians in unexpected locations and single takes. His passion for music also drove Vincent to other music-related projects and films with Michael Stipe and R.E.M., the band Beirut, Kazuki Tomokawa, or the ATP Music Festival. In 2009, Vincent moved to work in his new project, the collection Petite Planète, named as an homage to Chris Marker, with a nomadic approach to cinema, filming different musical and sound expressions and rituals all over the world. These films, as those produced for La Blogothèque, are shared online for free under a Creative Commons license. And he also explored this new concept for film screenings, the private-public screenings, on which people who want to see the films are responsible for organizing their own screenings. Since 2014, he's been working on the project Híbridos in Brazil, exploring spiritual and ritualistic experiences around music in different regions and communities. Vincent's webpage is a whole world to explore, with more than 500 films produced in the last 20 years. And his work has been important in deconstructing reality towards a greater sense of connection and togetherness through a diverse, spiritual, and non-dual understanding of our world. This combination of cinema and music in Vincent Moon's work moves away from representation as an enclosure of figures and events through their audiovisual capturing or recording. On the contrary, it reinforces the openness that this audiovisual representation offers to the understanding of the reality in all its diversity and complexity. As opposition to the simplification of reality, often encouraged by mass media, as well as moving away from a dual understanding of our world, Moon's films are visual and sound experiences that open up to a deconstruction of reality and also human beings, a return to our cosmic origins and our integration into nature and the world. They are offered as audiovisual rituals that seed the encounter and connection between people, between communities, and between nature itself. His ethnographic and experimental approach summons the image to meanings that range from the existential to the political, always with an emphasis on revealing the invisible as a field of unity and diversity between beings and contexts. It's nomadic cinema, outside of fixed structures or methodologies and independent of commercial or institutional impositions, allows a physical and spiritual approach to different places and people, discovering and questioning music, sound, and rituals as exercises for sharing, belonging, and also catharsis. And it is precisely this idea of ritual and sharing, of energies, sensations, understandings, that frame the experience proposed today by Vincent in the School of Arts as this trance movement around the petite planète that are his films, our minds, and reality itself. So, to kick off our conversation...
Yeah? Lots of stuff there. I'm very impressed that you could say so much about me. Muito obrigado, realmente, por essa introdução, realmente. Só para dizer para vocês também que estou muito feliz de estar aqui. É uma grande honra. Espero ver depois, talvez, seus sorrisos e tudo isso. Desculpe, eu não pensei que vai ter pessoas in my back. So, excuse me for that. If you want to move on that side for the first part, e depois daqui a 30 minutos vou fazer o live e depois você pode you can move back here. Just needed to do this, but you're fine there anyway. Yeah, that's it. Oh yeah, as you can see, I'm going to stick to English, but I got a crazy accent. I hope you can understand me. Many times when I give talks in English, people, not many times, but a few times it happened that people raise their hands. They're like, "Could you speak in English, please?" And I was like, Então, eu posso tentar fazer também uma mistura com o português, mas bem, vou ficar com o inglês the most of the time. Muito obrigado, and I hope you're going to have a nice trip.
Yeah, I think that English is going to work. Okay. I'm sure of it. So let's kick off with a quote that I understand is very dear to you by Peter Lamborn Wilson, or more known as Akim Bey, an American author and a thinker. And he said that every recording is a tombstone of a live performance. How does this influence your approach into art, the artistic approach, but also towards reality?
Wow, nice one to start with. So I'm going to say it again. Every recording is a tombstone of a live performance, and it's funny because I kind of like forgot that quote for a long time. I mean, it's only in the past few weeks that I found the text with that quote again, and I was like, that's actually, it sort of like showed me a certain like path towards working with images at some point. I think that quote comes from a text that Akim Bey was writing for a disc on sublime frequencies, if I'm not wrong. But Akim Bey, you might know his name for writing Temporary Autonomous Zones in 1991, a really quite important book in terms of anarchist poetical forms of communities. Anyway, every recording is a tombstone of live performance. And it's kind of like following that idea that I've been, especially I would say in the past few years, trying to question that memory, that archival society that we are building more and more, in the sense that we are, especially now, due to the pandemic, entering another phase in a sense of acceleration, obviously, of our virtual relationships towards each other, and our, and I guess the heavy weight of our memories is taking quite probably a strange, dramatic turn in a way. And it's something that we should always keep in mind, and I think it's interesting for me to have this talk with you here in that specific place, as you are so much involved as well with images, sounds, recordings, and so on. But what do we do with those recordings nowadays that we reach the point that there is so much out there? There is just so in a quite very, very short time, our humanity has been creating an insane amount of images and sounds, an insane amount of data that basically which goes way beyond our own possibilities to understand it, to not only watch it. I mean, I was reading recently that if you take nowadays 7 minutes on an Instagram feed, or basically, 7 minutes on what's being uploaded on Instagram, you would need 80 years of your entire life to watch it. So basically, and this is accelerating, obviously. So we're now facing a quite interesting paradox in our ability as human beings to face that complexity of reality. And obviously, it's quite certain that this kind of like forms of recordings and archiving and basically relating to our memories is actually a factor of distanciation towards reality, especially towards our bodies, towards our physical interactions and so on. And this is something that I was already, I guess, trying to question in my own frenetic, frantic, mad, crazy approach to reality. As you mentioned 500 films, I guess it's closer to 900 films in a way. But it's because I've been like making so much, always with the idea that every film I was making was also, and especially in a sense, it was a pretext. It was a way for me to engage my body with reality. It was my way to kind of like explore the societies that I was excited about, curious about. It was my microscope on reality. And I've been doing that so much and publishing it online since the very beginning. And I think we should probably talk about that, the digital open source approach that is, I think, at the very core of our digital tools. I mean, I see our digital technologies as sort of like, it's as if, in my opinion, there is in the code of in the specific code of the digital tools, there is that kind of like open approach to it, you know? And we are completely perverting it now. And so, after so many years of like amassing, documenting, and so on, I've, especially in the past 5 years, I've started to question, how do we give this back, not only on the digital platforms through various screens, but how do we give it back in reality? And how do we create the possibilities to experience those recordings in a different way? And let those recordings, through some methods that I would love to talk about, especially improvised methods, talk by themselves, or how do we let those recordings create another story every time? And anyway, I think that I'm here to kind of like question this with you, and I try to also offer this a little adventure after with the live performance.
Yeah, that's interesting because it's rethinking the purpose of the image, the purpose of a recording, but also in the sense of not simplifying the everyday life, but rather complexifying and unveiling all that it can be, including the invisible, the poetry, the magic that you find, for example, in a project like Híbridos in Brazil.
Yeah, so Híbridos was a project I made with my partner, Priscilla Telmont, for almost 5 years. We were documenting, we had this idea of like, we moved to Brazil and decided to start document rituals, ceremonies, not only indigenous or Afro-Brazilian rituals, but also Catholic ones, also very hybrid ones, which was very much at the core of the project. Why Brazil? Because Brazil is, in my opinion, the most diverse land for spiritual approaches to reality. And there is so much going on. And especially in things are still moving constantly, you know. There is quite a few places. We documented more or less like 70 ceremonies all around the country. But there is especially quite a few ones where that I felt that you will come there every week, and every week will be different. Every week the rules will change a little bit. Every week the mixes will change a little bit. I'm talking about some specific forms known as umbandaime, for example, mixing Afro-Brazilian approaches, rhythms with indigenous mythologies, with some specific plants, with some presence of the Catholic background, with more and more and more and more, and accumulating in this very wide approach to our globalized society. And I think that was very much our desire, was to show this aspect of Brazil, which is basically not being shown at all in mass media, which is very much at the core of the extremely independent approach I have to cinema, which is how do we show the world differently? How do we tell other stories? And it's very much, I guess, part of the fight we all have to fight nowadays.
And I think we can go there and just talk a little bit your approach, this idea of nomad cinema, of almost an ethnographic and experimental approach, do it yourself, almost a one-man show, a camera, laptop, sound, and you go to these places and you look into what is happening, improvising, getting what you get when you reach there, a very physical contact and very physical involvement with you, what you encounter in those places.
You want me to talk about this later on? Or?
I don't know.
But I can expand on this a little bit,
yeah.
just by saying a few things. I guess very much, as you said, as you mentioned quickly, I come from photography. Like 20 years ago, when I started really to get involved into art languages, let's say, I felt in love with photography, but a specific form of approach to reality, which is street photography. And I mean, I will not mention all those names which influenced me over the years, but there was something very direct in that was very my first love, was to get that very frontal, very direct, very subjective encounter with the heavens, the reality around you. And from that on, that approach, which basically made me able to create very simply just a camera in my hand, I would go into the street and I would be a photographer. Or I was young and very shy, very, very, very shy. And I needed to basically encounter a language which would make me feel, which would empower myself in my relationship to the society around. And I guess this relationship, just with one simple tool, just with that simplistic, very, very simple approach, was allowing me to open a completely new chapter in my life. And until I got stuck a little bit with not being able to find my own language, which has always been the sort of like, which is basically my also relationship with arts in general. I'm interested in people developing their own language on reality that will always suddenly show me reality under another angle, and then be like, oh, what is that angle on reality? I didn't think about that. I didn't see it. I didn't hear it before. That's, to me, the richness of our creative society nowadays. And so when I got stuck with photography, I realized my other passion, or my other love, absolute love, was for music, live music. And I was growing up in Paris, and I was always, every night, almost going to see live music. And I would go to so many venues and got my head turned completely. And I got into a very, very intense state of modified state of consciousness, in a sense, which I would find again later in other contexts. But then I realized that if I would switch that little photography camera by those new video cameras which were suddenly on the market 20 years ago, I would basically be able then to approach music the same way I was approaching my street relationships. And then this is it. This is the way I want to enjoy the digital tools in this very simple approach to reality, and develop that language just not by producing it with too many people, not by searching for money, not by writing anything. I mean, I never wrote one film, you know? I've always been doing the films because it's there, it's in the air, you catch it. It's more important than anything else. You just spend that moment with people, take the pretext of making a film, and then create that situation. And you will see some pretty cool stuff later on, hopefully. But then it was quite obvious that this digital era was, to me, also the birth of a completely new way to create, with not only images, but also with sound and so on and so on. And I've been keeping that line since then, you know. Even though recently I worked on some more produced projects, my love is to basically just go camera in the end and dance with reality. And that's kind of like this language that I'm still pursuing nowadays, and that I found sort of like engraved at the very core of the digital tool, this simple relationship to reality, to sort of like reopen reality, and then it's like opening a door in another way with a new key, and then you open it, and then reality suddenly starts to expand under a different light. And anyway, that's that's my approach.
Yeah, and that allows you to get things for a more spiritual approach, because you're not very concentrated on the technical aspects or the productive aspects. There is a very spontaneous, improvised contact with what you get. The idea of live performance as everyday life, it's an interesting context, because it's not about filming music. It's about filming what's ahead of you. And how do you see this connection between cinema and music? Because together they are something else. They are something different.
First thing I would say that my relationship, my understanding of cinema is images, sounds, and movements in space. Okay, so basically, then you have this completely new canvas, which is not based again on intellectual relationship, not on a clear narrative. Not to say there is no narratives in those films. Obviously, there is. Actually, there is a narrative in anything. The way that candle is burning, you can trip an entire night. Follow, pay attention to reality, and then you will unfold an infinite amount of events. And this is basically the way I relate to reality in those films. There is almost no talks in the films I make. There is a little bit, not too much, information. There is a lot of information for other parts of your body, but not too much for the brain. And that's also what I've been trying to feed. It's basically other parts of ourselves. How do we feed other parts of our bodies? And not only that kind of like part, that sort of like very analytic, very intellectual relationship to reality, but how do we impact the unconscious of the viewers? How do we impact the way his body is shaking, his heart rate, in a sense? And so this type of relationship, sensorial relationship, I always found it more easily in music than in cinema, truly. And the cinema that I've been close to, that I feel really attracted to, is very, very sensorial cinema, which do not try to tell me a story with a clear ending, especially. It's trying to open a space for me, for us as viewers, that let us feed ourselves, or let us complete, let's say. There was a beautiful quote by Abbas Kiarostami, Iranian filmmaker, saying that I only make half a film. The other half is made by the viewer. And this is, to me, a dialogue. This is, for me, the beginning to really start a creative dialogue together, you know? And so this approach that I've always been trying to defend with my own little tools, you know? And this approach to try to link cinema and music is very much based on the fact that those films are made with very little money, with a very simplistic almost approach to reality, just trying to refine your tool, the way you move in space, the way you film with your own camera. I've been using the same camera for like more than 10 years now, you know? We don't need to buy the new stuff on the market. We know that. But except we get grabbed into this like capitalistic way of like, we need the new elements, we need the new tools, we need a new update. Well, no, I haven't been updating my computer for like lots of time now. Because I know those tools, those technical tools are extremely powerful, but I will only be able to really fully use them if I spend enough time with them. So if I refrain my way of using these extremely powerful technologies, which are always distracting ourselves from the point. To find the point is basically also, we have to train ourselves to do that. we have to train ourselves to not look at our phone every fucking 5 minutes. But nobody is teaching us that. How do we do? You know? And I think our society is now facing that wall. We're like, whoa, we're just completely mad. We're just really, really mad. And now we look at kids like 2, 3 years old, like with screens in front of their eyes, and we're like freaking out, man. Yes, because we need to educate ourselves with this. So just to finish on this, I've been trying to educate myself with those tools, you know, to limit my approach to them. And those limits are allowing me a really, really interesting field, a really, really interesting game to play with reality. So that was my point, which is very far from your question, I think. Yeah. Your question was about music and cinema, but anyway, you know, that's my answer, trying to weave them together, following this simple approach.
Yeah, but your idea is completely connected to the idea of openness. So this idea of not letting, in what you were saying, technology close us, concentrated in something that it's not crucial for what you're trying to approach. That is this idea of experience, of ritual, not only the rituals that you find, but the rituals that you live, also as a filmmaker, I imagine. How you talked a little bit about this nomad cinema, very free from commercial or institutional impositions. There are a lot of opportunities that I believe this way of working brings you, but also I imagine some challenges, because as I understand the process, sometimes you go to a country, you don't know what you're going to film, you just know one person and you just let it go from there. What are the greatest challenges of working that way?
That you said, how do we know that magic exists in reality? Just by trying, you know? So little by little, through a very improvised approach to documentation, I realized that the less I was preparing myself, the less I was especially projecting ideas into the future, the more synchronicity was happening in my present time, which is actually a very simple approach. It's a very simple thing to understand. And if you're interested in like the ideas of Carl Jung, for example, you will find this very well phrased. Our relationship to the present moment determines the abilities we have to encounter magical things. Reality reverberates, but it's, in my opinion, does not reverberate with our intellectual approach. It reverberates with our body, with the way we move, with the way we love, with the way we improvise with it, you know? And the more I was improvising with reality, the more it was bringing me the person I had to meet in front of me, right there, you know? And so it's a very shamanic approach as well, because if you ask shamans, especially in the Amazon basin, about quantum physics and that relationship to time, they would be like, yes, of course we know. We know from like so long. That's the way we go hunting, for example, you know? We can like try to get information into the future by basically not intellectualizing it, but by meditating on top of it, by letting it go. So that's very fruitful. I can tell you, I'm like, I know it works. I've been trying it. I'm not a believer. I'm just experimenting this in reality. And you realize, wow, it reverberates. And you always have those like extraordinary encounters. So let's say, you know, with Priscilla, we went to Iran a year and a half ago without really any idea of what we will do. With really, as you said, 1 or 2 contacts. And we had 3 weeks in front of us. And so many things happened in those 3 weeks because we didn't plan anything. The less we planned, the more it was happening. The more we were meeting that Sufi master that would allow us to film this ritual that usually nobody gets to film. We would meet those like, I would meet this girl in Yazd, in a hammam, who just exchanging with her in English for the reason I was trying to buy something from the guy. Then I realized she's a singer that lives in Shiraz, and then 3 days later we're filming her in Shiraz with like 3 other girls. Nobody films 4 women in Iran. No, they're not allowed to do that actually. And then we were allowed to basically, by magic, by the spirits, we were allowed to enter all those rooms. That is allowed because I have, we travel light. We live light. We live with very little attachment to reality. We live with very little objects, man. And the way, I'm still mostly living with a backpack. And I just enjoy this so much. And it's a great way to reduce. And we know we need to reduce so much. We need to get out of our comfort zone. We need to get rid of so many of our privileges, especially us white people. And we need to kind of like regain a relationship with reality. And I've been having a lot of fun doing this, really. And of course, you don't do this for money, because that's definitely not the point. You just do this because it's extraordinarily rich. It's so rich to approach people like this and to create actually what at some point you look back and you're like, oh, how did that just happen? It was a ritual. It was a trance. It was something that it completely makes sense. But I'm not the creator of that. We are all sort of like part of this thing, you know? So yeah, it's very good to experiment like that.
And I think that's the perfect motto to just introduce what's going to happen here next.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
No, I think that's it. And I was like, no, I really want to talk about that. No, I think that's it. I think I wanted to say a word about this last thing, maybe. It's very much time to... I'm looking at a room full of people who have to wear masks, and I'm very lucky to not have, I don't have to, sort of, or they allow me to not to. I think it's very important now to question the way we live together, obviously. The way we live together, the way we share some values, the way we develop those values, the way we recreate our poetic spaces. What I learned through all those ceremonies that we filmed all around the world is that art languages are not separated from each other. Slowly, our Western society has been building some temples, let's say, cinemas, museums, music venues, and so on and so on. And so you have all those different forms next to each other, but they don't really interact that much. We're trapped into something. We're actually trapped into materiality. Nowadays, this crisis is allowing us to actually regain relationship with nature, regain the outside, to really question our languages, our hybrid languages, to mix, to merge, to remix constantly, and to keep it moving, to make it move, because it's always moving. That's the laws of nature. Nothing is stable. It's only vibrating constantly. So I think it's very important to, now, much more than ever, it's the time we have to recreate new spaces and invent new forms of being together. You can call it ceremonies, rituals, you can call it parties. Same thing to me. I tried my best.
So it's about connection, and it's about this idea of togetherness among us people. Okay.
Of course. Thanks a lot. So I'm going to do a little improvisation now. So all I'm going to do is improvised. If some of you want to go on stage, it's going to be quite trippy, because I would say this is not for the eyes only. And if you want to close your eyes, please feel free. I really don't care. I tried to create a little sonic meditation for all of us. So yeah, and the screen is really high and big, so you can lay on the floor and rest and take your time. So I'm using those different little equipment there, and it allows me to make some live editing. I'm using only my own films, our own recordings from the Petite Planète collection, as Pedro mentioned. And I really have no idea where I'm going. I'm just gonna give our, 45, a little bit more minutes, and we'll see, okay? I really have no idea what the story is gonna be like, but I hope you can help me complete it, okay? Thanks a lot. Muito obrigado.
raio e trovão, eu chamo todo o poder da criação, eu chamo o mar, chamo o céu e o infinito, eu chamo todos para nos libertar. Eu chamo Cristo, eu chamo Buda, eu chamo Krishna, eu chamo a força de todos os orixás, eu chamo todos com suas forças divinas, eu quero ver o universo iluminar. Eu chamo Cristo, eu chamo Buda, eu chamo Krishna, eu chamo a força de todos os orixás, eu chamo todos com suas forças divinas, eu quero ver o universo iluminar. Sou mensageiro, sou coreano, eu sou indígena, eu sou filho da nação do arco-íris. Com meus irmãos eu vou ser mais um guerreiro, na nobre causa do encarregador. Sou mensageiro, sou coreano, eu sou indígena, eu sou filho da nação do arco-íris. Com meus irmãos eu vou ser mais um guerreiro, na nobre causa do encarregador. Eu sou guerreiro e vou lutando, a minha espada é a palavra do amor, o meu escudo é a vontade do meu peito, e o meu elmo são os dons do meu Senhor. Eu sou guerreiro e vou lutando, a minha espada é a palavra do amor, o meu escudo é a vontade do meu peito, e o meu elmo são os dons do meu Senhor. Eu agradeço a nossa mãe, ao nosso pai, e aos meus irmãos por todos me ajudar. A minha glória para todos eu entrego, porque nós todos somos um nessa união. Eu agradeço a nossa mãe, ao nosso pai, e aos meus irmãos por todos me ajudar. A minha glória para todos eu entrego, porque nós todos somos um nessa união. Areia santa, areia santa, areia santa, desde o princípio nós somos irmãos. Oreoá, 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 viva o poder de todo o universo. Areia santa, areia santa, areia santa, desde o princípio nós somos irmãos. Oreoá.
Después semua itu pusing kese. Yo tulu ingan semua mau. Tina mai ta. Wei chai pe ma pu tai kan. Mereka semua ikut kuyi, ma pu yang ka. La como toi bueno ma pusau mau yang kan tu ma pu yang mau. Primu meli beam sampai we. Ngien ko, ngene nei takken. Ini lau fe di chunko intensi inamoyan mali bos ko mai mali wala ko mali kayen ko mali pinyan nai sampai we kemechi tu alkin ma ba ni chi klase sama ko ni lam da mali chi palian ko ya tuh kemarin hari ini kontensi udah main siapa itu? Ini pelan kan yang baru. Kalau macam orang kalau ni cuma dia pun. Ini kamari ku amanya. Cái quý phi cái kim nguyên cái là quý toa yang kami ke. Cái quý phi mình nó aku mau biar aku satu kince berpanjang. Ibu kita suami lagi yang kami. Waktu quý phi mình nó kita. Kamu ke payangan mau bisa mau. Ibu punya mi kuing. Balik biar le semua. Ibu chica tu mereka dia pun. Dun. Ketika dia pun tanya, saya ingin tak pergi ke sana. Ibu kan ni kan? Ibu kita. Mereka semua orang kita belum tahu dia apa. Mungkin. Saya tu orang saya ingin tu ni baik tu. Bukan ni baik. Bukan ni baik. Ibu pun macam ni baik. Orang yang punya. Sekali jadi kita kaitannya dengan ini. Kemudian, tentang kita sekitar, tentang kita semua. Kisahnya kawan mau, kisahnya lagi kawan mau. Cem kita mali, lupa rumah belu, lupa rumah kecil, lupa rumah besar. Jika lu kata setannya sepeluan, kalau yang mau lemu kita. Kali tafia yang mengenai rumah, kena pemalian, kemudian orang mawam. Kemudian tafita, oh kecil. Kita minta ni pakai macam laku sakit boleh. Macam ni, ini tadi suami tahu kita ni kemain orang apa yang sebut kita malah kita kemain mana yang kita mayung PM cawan ni.
Беганец ктуялар бу, милха чучагу, налвайщинала амбу, ницк балушка стара. Моего шехца кьета, хуаита аспега, ховицур кцахилар, динен чахмел еха. Моего шехца кьета, Хуаита асфега, ховицур кцахилар, динен чахмел еха. Ламан цадар цделча, цудак тяхи сеча, сайди лахшабича, ича лулу шляхтича. Юахарна кьерацо мяла халуахилара, бакцадо садаго, хахка Астади зарса Йохарна қиратсо мяла халуахилара Бақцадо садаго Ах астади зарса Йохарна қиратсо мяла халуахилара Бақцадо садаго Ах астади зарса